All right, here we go. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kids from ages 8 to 80. Welcome to the 2010 USCSA National Championships, here live from Sunday River in beautiful western Maine and Newry, Maine. As today, an exciting lineup of collegiate national championship snow sports on the plate, as we will bring you live coverage of the men's slalom here on the Monday Morning Trail. And today at 11:30, we will move over to the Lower Cascades Trail for the men's and women's snowboard giant slalom. Hi, everybody. Boss Hogg alongside Nikki Holden, bringing you the action from the Barker Mountain Base Lodge, here from our broadcast vantage point at the bottom of the Monday Morning Trail, as we complete 5 days of exciting collegiate competition here at Sunday River. Our final day stands to be the best, as the men will compete for a national championship in the slalom event here starting around 9:30 this morning. We'd like to welcome all of our listeners today on the USCSA Radio Network. As you tune in to www.uscsa.com, we'll be bringing you the first run of the men's slalom, followed by the men's and women's giant slalom on the snowboards, and then back to the final run of the men's slalom, where we'll crown the 2010 USCSA National Champion. Nikki Holden, it looks like we've got a beautiful day in store for us, as this race course is immaculately prepared by the race crews here at Sunday River, and warm temperatures reaching the mid-40s today, and a bluebird sky. You couldn't ask for any more here for the final day of the USCSA National Championships.
You really couldn't, boss. And after that excitement in the men's GS that we saw just a couple days back, it'll be great to see this men's slalom, see how this all works out. And boss, let me just tell you, it's been a pleasure to be alongside you for these last 5 days.
We have had some fun here. It all fired up on Tuesday evening right here at Barker Lodge as the opening ceremonies got underway. An enormous X Games style half-pipe final competition with a big cookout and a fireworks display fired up the competition on Tuesday, and it's been 4 consecutive days of exciting action all over Sunday River. Of course, the Nordic competitions and the cross-country racers, they've been out at Black Mountain in Rumford, Maine all week long. They've been competing, and Nikki, you've been out there to see some exciting cross-country competition.
Sure have been. Yesterday was the men's and women's 15-kilometer classic race there. That was the only event, which was a mass start there at Black Mountain. Certainly presented a different element, definitely psychologically, when you see your opponent right next to you, knowing that you started at the same time and you'll be able to race that opponent through the finish line. Certainly a different psychological element there, and we saw a lot of energy coming out of there. Of course, the big surprise out of Black Mountain yesterday, St. Olaf really destroying the competition. We'll see how they do in today's.
It is the men's slalom competition here this morning. From the Monday Morning Trail, we'll get the 4 runners underway here momentarily, as an enormous field travels in from all over the United States to compete here today for a national championship in the United States Collegiate Ski and Snowboard Competition. 120 racers on the men's plate for you this morning. They'll all take their first runs. Of course, we'll be back at 1 o'clock this afternoon for the second run. They'll combine the times from both runs, and that combined time will determine who this year's 2010 USCSA National Champion is in the men's slalom event. Today's broadcast on the USCSA Radio Network is being brought to you by Reliable Racing, your one-stop shop for all that is snow sports, racing, and supply. Whether it's their full line of winter sports race gear, timing, or hill and event supplies, Reliable Racing has the solution for you. Reliable Racing, the official equipment supplier of the USCSA National Championships. Today's broadcast also brought to you by Halti USA, the official clothing supplier of the USCA. Halti USA, their passion to provide great outdoor memories. Check them out on the web at www.haltiusa.com. 390 meters of vertical fun face these men in the first run of the slalom down the Monday morning trail here at Sunday River. And an incredible week of course preparation here from the Sunday River race crew, as last week the western mountains of Maine were clobbered by almost 5 foot of snow. And of course, as you know, Nikki, it is tough to move that kind of snow around when you need to scrape it down to the ice these racers like to race on.
Absolutely, boss, but this course really looking beautiful today. See some guys out there with some shovels keeping that course looking really nice. It's going to be a little tough with the warm temperatures, but they've done a great job here so far this week at Sunday River, and I only expect it to continue here at the men's slalom event.
This 390-meter course set by Garrett Lasher from Colby Sawyer College, the coach there from Carrabassett Valley, Maine. And you can bet Lasher has used it all here as we see 3 different elevation changes here on this Monday morning trail. The racers come out of the start shack immediately into a steep section where they will build up speed. They have to be carrying speed out of that top section as they get into the first flat section where the course changes direction dramatically. Then they'll have to use the wax on their skis. They'll have to flow fast through that flat until they reach the second downhill section. They're located in the middle of the course. Again, picking up more speed into a second flat section, and then into the final third here of the course on Monday morning, reaches the steeps one more time. So if it's not back and forth from skiers left to right, it is certainly up and down. And Nikki, as a competitive ski racer yourself, you understand how difficult it can be to make those transitions from fast to slow and left to right.
Indeed, looks like it really straightens out here at the bottom, which is going to we're going to see some fast finishes here at the men's slalom. Definitely a technical part in the middle, but not too steep. So we'll see how these men can hold up today.
As I said, a great day of snow sports racing here for the USCSA National Championships. We'll fire up here just minutes away from the men's alpine slalom first run. Also taking place at Black Mountain this morning is the women's Nordic 3x5K relay, classical freestyle. And the snowboard giant slalom will begin here, the first run over on the lower Cascades Trail right at 11 o'clock. Then we'll be back for the men's second run of the slalom here on Monday morning at 1 p.m. this afternoon. And then at 1:45 this afternoon, move back over to the lower Cascades Trail for the final run of the men's and women's snowboard giant slalom. So a jam-packed day, triple header coverage here on the USCSA Radio Network. We'd like to welcome all of the folks here at Sunday River to an exciting day of collegiate ski racing here from Sunday River. And now, ladies and gentlemen, if we can ask for you to please stand and face the flag, remove your hats, gentlemen, as we now present to you the national anthem. And as our friend Darrell Waltrip would say, let's go racing. Buggity, 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 buggity. We are ready for the men's slalom here for the 2010 USCSA National Championship, welcoming all here at Sunday River for a great morning of ski racing down this Monday morning trail. 120 competitors from around the United States and Canada converge upon Sunday River, and we're going to crown a national champion later this afternoon here in the men's slalom. Let's go over some of our technical delicate information here. Today's TD for the men's slalom race is Tony Nunnenkoven. M. Zube is the referee, and B. Bryant is the chief of race. We'll be looking at 4 runners. 5 of them come down to begin this competition. They want to check the final conditions of this slalom course. And now on course, G. Finnegan from the United States. We'll send 5 of the racers down in order. They'll take a look and report back up to the top, make any last-minute course corrections or changes. Lots of course workers here on this slalom as many gates need to be replaced and ruts need to be raked out. So you will see all day long lots of folks moving in and out of the race course. I'd like to certainly congratulate all of the course workers that have been here all week long. All part of the Sunday River race crew. And also part of the USCSA Volunteer Services crew. It does take a village to bring you a national championship here, and certainly we've got one in Newry, Maine on a Bluebird Saturday morning here from Sunday River. Now on course, one of the 4 runners, A. Butler. He's followed by G. Lyons, and J. Dam is in the start shack. A great honor for these young racers to forerun in this 2010 USCSA National Championship. Many of these young racers will end up at these same national championships in future years as they get into college and begin their collegiate racing career. Over 60 colleges represented here all week long. As far away as Southern California and British Columbia, they converge upon Sunday River to compete for titles in all of the alpine disciplines, the snowboard disciplines, and the Nordic cross-country disciplines. And tonight at the Grand Summit Hotel at 7 o'clock, the USCSA will also award its National Collegiate Team Championships, and that gives a big trophy and bragging rights to the school who takes the gold home today from these national championships.
Boss, our last forerunner there was Greg Lyons out of Worcester Polytechnic Institute, a team that just narrowly missed the national championship here at Sunday River. Taking a little spill down there at the bottom. It's going to be a tough course if one Greg Lyons is having difficulties in this bottom section, where it appears to straighten out, but still some racers getting caught up there. That's the place to watch. Also, up the hill, we've got a rough undergate. Very, very big left-hand turn coming right over a pitch. Boss, is going to be a very interesting course and a great day for some very exciting ski racing.
Our final forerunner, Jay Bennett, now on course from the top. As you can see him come through the steep section here. Then there'll be a big turn as he reaches the flats. Things slow down a little bit, and then right back into the steeps again. So a big speed change right there in the top third of the course. Very tricky for these racers. They've got to be carrying the speed through the center section as they reach the flats again. And as you can see, those speed changes can be very tricky, as our forerunners are finding out. The coach for Colby Sawyer College, Garrett Lasher, setting this morning's first run course. And you can bet that Lasher has not made it easy for these competitors. You know, Nikki, we talked about it yesterday. Do the East Coast skiers have an advantage when they're on the East Coast against the West Coast skiers? Of course, ski conditions and course conditions very different here in New England than they are out in the western mountain states. We thought that might be an advantage for the eastern skiers and riders here this week, but contrary to our initial beliefs, the West Coast has come here to New England this week and dominated many of the races.
West Coast is really cleaned up. Didn't expect to see that, but we'll see how they do here in the slalom. I'm expecting to see a lot of athleticism out of all these racers today on this pretty tough course.
So we are getting ready to get underway here from Sunday River, Maine. Thanks for joining us here at the USCSA National Championship Men's Slalom Race. Our first racer from Clarkson University will be Jean-Philippe Fanouf. He'll be followed by Brad West, Kevin Sheehan, Robert Kraft, Joel Bischoff, Max Winthrop, Nick Pera, Steven Zotter, Steven Fiorella, and Mark Parathiner. There's your first 10 as we get ready to start the first run of 2 here from Sunday River.
Jean-Philippe Panouf, our first skier we'll see today, is a sophomore out of Clarkson. Originally from Montreal, Quebec. His favorite skier board memory was skiing out at Chile. Loved that fresh powder. Definitely some very different conditions here. Hard packed snow, maybe even some ice in some spots. It looks like Jean-Philippe Panouf now on course.
He is now out of the start shack into the top of the course. Here comes Jean-Philippe Panouf from Clarkson University, making his way into the halfway mark. He's got good speed. The things to notice in the slalom racing is a very still upper body. One that doesn't move, is always pointing downhill with the helmet pointing downhill. Meanwhile, the legs and the lower body swinging violently back and forth. That's a sign of a fast run. When it looks out of control, it means it's fast. And here comes Jean-Philippe Panouf from Clarkson University. Into the final 5 gates comes Panouf. And across the stripe is Jean-Philippe Panouf. He'll take a time of 53.27, and the first racer always gets to be in first place, at least for some time. Meanwhile, from Whitman College, Brad West wearing bib number 2 on course into the bottom third. He'll be followed by Kevin Sheehan, now out of the race shack starting position, onto the top of the course. Robert Kraft from Penn State University, he awaits his first run now in the start shack. Meanwhile, Brad West from Whitman College punching the last 3 gates, and he stands up across the line. Brad West with a time of 56.90 from Whitman College will move him into second. Here comes Kevin Sheehan from Sierra Nevada College. Sheehan now negotiating the last steep section of the course. Got to keep the speed here. And he looks like he's moving well, skiing quickly into the short flush. Now 3 gates to go, and here comes Kevin Sheehan across the stripe in 50.70, good enough for first place. So Sierra Nevada College's Kevin Sheehan throwing down a great first run here on a beautiful Saturday morning at Sunday River, Maine. On course, Robert Kraft from Penn State University, now just dropping in from the start house. Joel Bischoff from the University of Minnesota at Duluth. Robert Kraft now into the lower third as Bischoff makes his way up from the top. Bischoff looks like he's skiing tremendously fast. Robert Kraft now from Penn State across the line in a time of 58.32, good enough for 4th position. So your top 3, Kevin Sheehan from Sierra Nevada, Jean-Philippe Panouf from Clarkson, and Brad West from Whitman College. Those are your top 3 as we are just underway here for the USCSA Men's Slalom National Championship. Now across the finish line comes Joel Bischoff from the University of Minnesota in Duluth with a time of 54.74. That'll move him into the 3rd slot, pushing Brad West from Whitman College into the 4th position. Max Winthrop from Babson College. He's now on course into the lower 3rd. At the top, you'll see Nick Pera from Virginia Tech. But it's Max Winthrop from Babson punching out the final gate, and across the stripe comes Winthrop with a time of 53.54, good enough for 3rd place. Halfway up the hill is Nick Pera from Virginia Tech as he moves into the flatter section. It'll turn steep once again for Pera. And dropping in from the start shack from Castleton College, Steven Zotter. Boston College's Steven Fiorella awaits to come down for his first run in the start shack. Meanwhile, Nick Pera from Virginia Tech making his way through the final 5 gates here on the Monday morning run, and across the stripe comes Nick Pera from Virginia Tech with a time of 1:00.85. Looks like a little bit of trouble midway up the course for Steven Zotter from Castleton College. Zotter was missing a gate but was able to hike back and catch the gate, so he's still running here in his first run. Remember, if you do not finish or are disqualified in the first run, you lose the opportunity for the second run. Your day is over. So a good recovery from Steven Zotter from Castleton College, and he finishes his first run in a time of 59.28.
Steven Zotter, the freshman out of Castleton State College, He won 2 slalom races this season in the Thompson division. He's got to be a little bit disappointed with the fall, but a good recovery. We'll see how he does in the second run this afternoon.
Now Stephen Fiorella from Boston College into the final 3-gate flush. And pushing through the finish area into the corral is Stephen Fiorella from Boston College. And a great run from Fiorella, 51.56. That'll put Stephen Fiorella from Boston College into the second place position. Still leading this morning on the first run from Sierra Nevada, it's Kevin Sheehan. But here comes Mark Parathiner from Westminster. Now Parathiner across the stripe in a blistering 49.14. He's in the lead. Mark Parathiner from Westminster College with a lightning fast first run here in the beginning stages of the 2010 USCSA Men's Slalom National Championship.
Mark Parathiner there with a very technically sound run. Made that course look easy and destroying the competition.
Now Peter Smiley from Stanford University. He's in the lower third, negotiating the final 8 gates here on the Monday morning run. Our next racer will be Jack Jarvis. And now he drops in. But meanwhile, across the stripe comes Peter Smiley from Stanford with a time of 59.89.
Looks like Ian Schumann, bib number 12, the sophomore out of Syracuse, will be a DNF, and he will not have a second run today.
So a tough break for Ian Schumann. Of course, you've got to be able to complete the first round to give yourself an opportunity to win a national championship. They take both of the runs and combine the times, and that's how they determine your podium, which will take place later this afternoon. Meanwhile, in the middle of the course, moving into the bottom third, it's Jack Jarvis from Loyola Marymount University. He's wearing bib 13. He'll be followed by Colby Sawyer College's Sean Dunstan. And in the start shack from the University of British Columbia, it's Matt Bunston. Now into the final 8 gates comes Jack Jarvis from Loyola Marymount. And he punches the stripe with a time of 103.47. Quickly behind him, however, from Colby Sawyer College is Sean Dunstan. Dunstan moving well here into the bottom of the course. And through the quick flush, the last gate, punches across. It's Sean Dunstan, and a fast time for Dunstan from Colby Sawyer College, 49.92. That's good enough for second place behind Mark Parathiner from Westminster College. So fast and furious ski racing here early in the first run of this Men's Slalom National Championship. Matt Bunston now from the University of British Columbia. He's from Whistler Mountain, and now he crosses the stripe in a 50.43. Good enough for third place for the University of British Columbia's Matt Bunston. So your top 5 now look like this. At the top, it's Mark Parathiner from Westminster College. In the second slot, Colby Sawyer, Sean Dunstan. University of British Columbia's Matt Bunston in third. Sierra Nevada College's Kevin Sheehan in fourth. And rounding out your top 5 from Boston College, it's Stephen Fiorella. Meanwhile, from Rocky Mountain College, now through the finish gate, into the corral, it's Ollie Freiberg. And Freiberg with a time of 50.61, good enough for 5th position.
Ollie Freiberg, the sophomore out of Rocky Mountain College, originally from Sweden. Looked like he scrubbed a little speed, about 20 gates up from the bottom. But a very aggressive run there out of Ollie Freiberg. Expect to see a lot of him in the second run.
Now on course, wearing bib 17 from Fairfield University, it's Gregory Peterson. Peterson now through the last gate, and across the stripe comes Gregory Peterson in a time of 58.67. We'll take a short course hold here as the crew goes out and scrapes off any ruts that have begun to develop, tightening up any gates that have been hipped or not sideways. And from Northern Michigan University awaits Daniel Minzy. No, check that. Looks like we have a change here in that order. Wearing bib number 18. Let's see if we can get some information. Looks like we've had a bib change. Indeed we have, and it is Daniel Minzy. So from Northern Michigan University in the start shack now, wearing bib number 18, Daniel Minzy. He awaits his first run. Beautiful day here on a Saturday from Sunday River, Maine. We couldn't have asked for better conditions. Bluebird skies with just some white, thin layered wispy clouds to kind of make the backdrop just picture perfect here from Sunday River. As we said earlier, a huge week of snow last week as the Western Maine Mountains received almost 5 feet of the white stuff. Certainly a challenge for Jake Treadwell and his course crew here at Sunday River. And they worked countless hours, almost 48 hours straight over last weekend to prepare this venue for these national championships, and nothing but complaints. And then a wipeout here in the bottom third of the course as Daniel Minzy had big speed coming through the lower section, but he was unable as he hooked a ski to recover. And let's take a look at Minzy now, Daniel Minzy from Northern Michigan University. And it looks like he's up on 2 legs, so he's going to be okay, but a tough break for Daniel Minzy, as Minzy will be a DNF here in the first round and will not get a second chance here at this national championship slalom.
Dan Minzy there catching a little bit of an edge, straddling a gate, and then eventually double ejecting out of his skis, but he looks like he'll be all right standing up the side of the course.
Meanwhile, Peter Ostrowski from Plymouth State University, he puts together a great first run into the finish corral with a 50.28. That's good enough for third place for Peter Ostrowski. So your top 5, it's Parathiner from Westminster, Dunstan from Colby Sawyer, Peter Ostrowski now moving into third from Plymouth State University. From University of British Columbia, Matt Bunston in fourth, and Kevin Sheehan from Sierra Nevada College rounding out your top 5. From St. Olaf College, wearing bib number 20 now, halfway through this course, it's Max Lund.
Max Lund, the sophomore of St. Olaf, originally out of Hudson, Wisconsin.
Max Lund now into the lower third. Doing a good job of negotiating this tough slalom course set by Colby Sawyer's Garrett Lasher. Here comes Lund into the final sticks, and across the stripe comes Lund with a time of 52.60. Matthew Small from UMass Amherst now on course, crossing the halfway mark into the bottom third. He's got a great intermediate split of 19.99. It's good enough for second place. So Matthew Small is moving well. Will he be able to carry the speed and take over the top slot? Here comes Matthew Small through the final flush and across the stripe. It's Matthew Small, and Matthew Small with a final time of 50.06. Good enough for third place. So UMass Amherst Matthew Small sneaks on to the top 3 list here early in the first run of the men's slalom from Sunday River. Now from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, crossing the finish line with a time of 55.87, wearing bib 23. It's Cale Westby. Westby has now completed his first run. He will look to recover now and come back this afternoon to nail the second one down. Meanwhile, the University of Pennsylvania's Andrew Stanley on course. He'll be followed by Dan Halligan from Rochester University.
Andrew Stanley, Jr. out of University of Pennsylvania, placed second in slalom at the Mid-Atlantic Regional Championships. Looks like he's taking not a very aggressive run here, but we'll see what his time has to say.
And across the stripe comes Stanley from University of Pennsylvania with a time of 58.34. Dan Halligan now into the bottom third from Rochester College. Just dropping in at the top from Westminster. Check that. Yes, from Westminster College. No, we want to check that again. It's from Western State College. Dylan Bryant on course. But now it's Dan Halligan from Rochester. And across the stripe in 54.78, it's Dan Halligan. Now Dylan Bryant from Western State. Bryant's moving well. Brian Breeze from Tufts University has just come out of the start shack high above this Monday morning trail. And Robert Burke from Castleton College awaits in the start house for his first run. But here is Dylan Bryant across the stripe from Western State in a time of 50.882. Good enough for 8th position. 120 racers here for the first run of this USCSA National Championship. We're glad you're joining us on the World Wide Web on the USCSA Radio Network. Boss Hogg alongside Nikki Holden bringing you the live action from the base of Barker Mountain here at Sunday River. And now across the stripe, it's Brian Breeze from Tufts University. He crosses in 54.30.
Boss, Brian Breezy right there, run into a whole lot of trouble skidding out at that bottom third of the course. His girlfriend, Laurel Bennis, over at Boston University, not going to be too proud of that run.
Robert Burke now from Castleton College out of the start shack. He'll try to throw this first run down. You know, it's definitely a balancing act here, Nikki, as you know from competitive ski racing, as to how hard can you go on the first run. If you go too hard and you blow up and you get a DNF, you don't even get an opportunity to come back. It completely eliminates your chances to win a national championship. So there's a real balancing act going on here on the first run, as these racers need to be fast but can't be too out of control in fear of losing that opportunity for the second run.
Absolutely. Speaking of out of control, Robert Burke, the sophomore out of Castleton State College, looked like he just skidded out. Maybe put a little too much weight on that outside ski. When we're talking about slightly softer snow conditions, which we have a little bit of here with the warm temps, you really got to rely on that inside ski a little bit more. And in the same spot there, Ryan Lawless of Colby Sawyer. Couple of skiers there running into some issues. Getting a little bit too much weight on that outside ski and just leaning over too far.
So just around the same spot that Robert Burke had trouble with, it's Ryan Lawless. Burke was across the finish line at 104.56, but he'll still have an opportunity to come back in the second run here later this afternoon. Wearing bib 29, Ryan Lawless across the stripe at 59.65. So although they would have liked to have had better times, just finishing the race important, as they will both have the opportunity for their second runs today. Now across the stripe comes Blake Radke from the University of Minnesota at Duluth in a time of 53.97. Now halfway through, moving into the bottom third, it's Stephen Matzat from Stanford University. And at the top, from the University of British Columbia, Alexander Matheson.
Boss, we're seeing some wipeouts here and a lot of hiking going on in this men's slalom race. It's always a little bit demoralizing to have to hike, but it's really important when we're talking about how much stress the USCSA places on these team standings. DNFs just wreak havoc on those team scores. You need to have 3 finishers or else you are out. So this hiking here, of course, a testament to how important these team standings are to these individual competitors.
Stanford University's Stephen Matzat crosses the stripe in a 104.40. Alexander Matheson from British Columbia now negotiating the final 2 gates here, and across the line he comes with a time of 55.29. Nick Stang now from St. Olaf, wearing bib 33 into the bottom third, and out of the start shack from Rocky Mountain College comes Bjorn Tuaz. Penn State University's Wes Hall now is next to come out of the start shack. Meanwhile, Nick Stang from St. Olaf punching out the final gate, and across the line into the corral comes Nick Stang from St. Olaf with a time of 51.79. Exciting action all day long here from the Barker Mountain Lodge at Sunday River. We'll move over next door to the Lower Cascades Trail at 11 this morning, and we'll bring you live coverage of the men's and women's snowboard giant slalom. Always an exciting event. And then back here at 1 o'clock on the Monday Morning Trail for the men's slalom second run. Now it's Bjorn Tuaz from Rocky Mountain College across the stripe in 52.26. Good enough for 11th position. So your top 5, Mark Parathiner from Westminster, Sean Dunstan from Colby Sawyer, Matthew Small from UMass Amherst, Plymouth State's Peter Ostrowski in the 4th slot, and rounding out the top 5 from the University of British Columbia, it's Matt Bunston.
Let's take a look at these team standings as of right now, boss. First place, we've got St. Olaf. Second, University of British Columbia. In third place, that would be UMD, the University of Minnesota in Duluth. Fourth, Colby Sawyer College. Fifth, Westminster. Sixth, UMass Amherst. Seventh, Plymouth. Eighth, Sierra Nevada. 9, we've got Rocky Mountain College. And in 10th, it was BC. Looks like these standings, of course, changing around rapidly as we get the top 3 skiers from every team coming down the hill right now. And we see a little bit of wipeout action just up the course there. Looks like David Simon out of Clarkson taking a little spill on that top third of the course, and he'll be hiking to try to help out his team score.
Penn State University's Wes Hall, wearing bib 35, crosses in a 111.96. He's followed by Tim Back from Whitman College in bib 36 with a time on the first run of 54.47. David Simon from Clarkson University is on course, moves across the halfway part of this Monday morning trail into the lower third. Remember, what you're looking for is a still upper body pointing downhill while the hips and legs swing violently left to right. The more out of control these racers look typically is meaning the faster they're headed down this Monday morning course. And here comes David Simon from Clarkson University. Into the final 8 gates comes Simon. It looks like he's lost a pole, so he's picked up 1 pole and is using it as a battering ram. And David Simon from Clarkson across in 1:22.76. So persistence pays off for Simon. He'll get a second chance to better his time today, starting at 1 o'clock.
David Simon making it through the finish line with 1 pole, and that 1 pole was not in very good shape, pretty bent up. Looked almost like those GS poles that racers will use to get into a tuck with in some faster events. But David Simon there will get a second run.
Now from Babson College, it's Keith Vella on course. Vella looking good through the top of this course.
Vella really carrying a lot of speed through that undergate there that started the second pitch. Let's see if he can keep that speed up as he approaches the bottom of this course.